Hi, my name's Rachel. I just filmed an entire video that I don't think anybody's ever going to see because I cried a lot. Today we're going to talk about two different books that I have read. One of them I read in 2019 of my own volition, and then one of them I was commissioned to read. So I read The Family Upstairs by Lisa Jewell, which honestly kind of traumatized me, which I'm not super mad at the author because trigger warnings are not very common. I didn't think to look. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. I'll tell you what triggered a panic attack for me. It's like a personal thing. You probably will be fine. But wow, this video has gotten away from me already. And then there is a secondary book that I read recently that it said it was horror on Goodreads, but I wouldn't call it horror. I would call it a psychological thriller. And I found some like parallels between the two, so I thought if you are a fan of Lisa Jewell's The Family Upstairs, which I know recently got a sequel, then you might be a fan of this book. I was commissioned to read this book. Full transparency, that does not affect my rating or my review. First of all, let's talk about The Family Upstairs by Lisa Jewell. This is a psychological thriller. It was published in 2019, I believe. And it's got multiple timelines. So we have a family living in a house where everything goes very badly. And then we have a child that was born on the tail end of this family sort of, spiraling downwards, who later tries to put the pieces together of what happened to her family. Okay. The novel has three different perspectives. One of them is in first person and is an unreliable narrator. And this book also kind of has that. In The Family Upstairs by Lisa Jewell, we have Lucy, Henry, and Libby. Libby inherits a mansion in London, and then Lucy and Henry are our other two characters. They were around for what happened in the house. So you get bits and pieces through, and it's really interestingly told, where it's like you're getting bits and pieces, but you're not sure what's real because of the unreliable narrator, and then you're getting, more layers to like you're starting to learn what happened at the house, why everything spiraled, what actually happened, what's true and what's not, and it culminates in like this pretty like what the fuck ending. And the novel's really about like hidden family secrets and how that affects like generations in a family, how your family informs your identity, and also talks about like power. So the family in the house, they are living together, and then this other couple shows up and it spirals downwards, where it sort of becomes like a cult house. It's very weird. It's good though. Libby, our main character in present day, she's really affected by what happened at the house, despite, never really being there other than as a baby. She's like searching for who she is, her identity, her sense of belonging. Lucy and Henry, our information about them is revealed very slowly through flashbacks, and we start to understand who they are and how they've come to be in present day based on what happened in the house. So there's a lot of tense interactions. There's child abuse. The thing that scarred me was a forced miscarriage. I don't do well with that when the person who is pregnant does not want basically it's a forced abortion, I guess. Miscarriage, abortion. There is one, and I didn't know that was going to happen, and I had a panic attack because I had 2 miscarriages and I have a lot of trauma surrounding that. So I wasn't expecting that, and I did have a panic attack. I wish that I had been warned so that I could have just skipped it or gone into it knowing and like put the book down until I was ready to read it. But it did happen, so be very careful reading that. It's tense. It is a lot. And there's also like commentary. It's there, but it's not like the forefront. The forefront is to, the twists and turns and the psychological tension. So it talks about like the effects of neglect on children, but also things like homelessness. And it kind of makes you question things like who was responsible for what happened in the house. So Patchwork has a very similar, well, it has a lot of similarities, but not in any way that I feel like they're exactly the same. It's more like if you liked this, try this kind of thing, right? Just like with The Family Upstairs, having a lot of triggering content surrounding like child abuse and neglect, and then there's like that forced miscarriage scene. Reading about child abuse is incredibly difficult for me, and I think that the author approached this in a way that was written with like understanding and consideration and compassion. This book deals with incredibly sensitive topics though, and you really have to be careful. Both of them do, surrounding parents abusing their children and how that manifests, and how parents can fail their children, and then subsequently how systems can fail to protect children from their own parents. And I think that the author did a really good job here, and it was not gratuitous for the sake of like shock value, which I deeply appreciate. But please know, before you approach this book, make sure you are in a position where you can read about incredibly difficult topics. So there's child abuse, including physical, mental, emotional, emotional child abuse, verbal abuse, child abandonment, a mother threatening to kill her own children, parent using authorities to manipulate their children, so cops and psychiatrists. On page, childhood sexual assault. Childhood sexual assault by a parent is mentioned. Threats of kidnapping a child, drugs used on children, suicide attempts, self-harm, custody battle, police interrogation, incarceration while awaiting trial. So this is about a brother and a sister who have an abusive mom, and the brother leaves and then he comes back for his sister. It's a little more complicated than that, and honestly I didn't really like the beginning of this at all. For a long time reading this book I wasn't feeling much of anything other than confusion. By the end though, I bawled my eyes out. I think that the problem that led to me not rating this any higher, I think I gave it about a 3, which I gave The Family Upstairs a 3.5. The setup of this did not do it any favors, and it could have. So the beginning is very confusing to me, and I feel like if we had just changed the beginning, I would have had a better time. I think that a better setup would have been if we had had the opening being these two siblings, Alana and Peter, being in a police interrogation room, because they end up there anyway, and have it set up where it's like one of my favorite things where it's like, oh, bet you're wondering how I got here, and then we recount how we got there, much like Stephen King's Dolores Claiborne, which I think is a really great setup. Having that sense of knowing a little bit about where the story is going would have made me more interested, but until we hit about 50%, I was just confused and felt like we were adrift. And that's why I think that The Family Upstairs by Lisa Jewell did better, because we know where we end up, where Libby has inherited this house and the family is torn apart and the parents are dead. The house is like this dilapidated old mansion, and you know there's people missing, and you're like, what the fuck happened here? How did we get here? And then you use the rest of the book to answer those questions, right? And it has like relevance to who these people are now, presently. We spent a lot of the beginning with Alana and Peter being reunited after being apart for a couple of years, and I was so confused about them reuniting and the context around it that I kept waiting for Alana to ask, like, what the hell am I doing here? Because essentially Peter like kidnaps her and takes her to like an old hotel where he sort of works from. And then we get a lot of interacting with a woman who shows up named Dee or Di. I don't remember how to pronounce her name. It's Di. And I felt for the most part that she was completely unnecessary to the story. She could have been replaced and it would not have made a huge impact on me as a reader. So all this to say, up until about 50%, the narrative could have been so much better. I think starting off the book again with like a police interrogation would have also made it a lot easier for us to have these callbacks to their childhood to contextualize what was going on in a way that had like better continuity and was more satisfying as the reader. But that being said, once we hit the part where the kids end up picked up by the police because she's a missing child, she's like 15 years old, then things started to make more sense, but we were really far into the book at that point. And then I started feeling like I understood these kids, again though we had already hit 50% by this point. I thought the tension between them made so much more sense in the police setting than it did in the hotel setting. And then there was a point where we realized that two people that we had heard about previously are the same person, and that twist kicked my ass. I reread the lines and I was like, no, oh my gosh, that was so good. It was so good. It felt very much like I felt reading The Family Upstairs when one of the big twists happens and I'm like, oh no. It was so smart on the author's part because that really like highlighted the psychological like shit. It just showed how differently these kids' upbringings were, despite them being children of the same abusive parents. And I thought that was really smart and intentional writing on the author's part. By the end, I was really worried about these kids. I felt so bad, but I wish that I had connected with them and their story and that it had been told in sort of like a thriller aspect of how did we end up here, just like The Family Upstairs by Lisa Jewell. Because unfortunately, I wasn't feeling bored or like thrilled, interested, like, oh, this is so mysterious. For the first 50%, I was just confused. I will say that twist was so good though. No, this is a 3.5. This isn't a 3, it's a 3.5. That twist was so good. I mean, it wasn't good, it was terrible, but it was very smart writing on the author's part. It really showcased like, again, these kids went through horrific things in the same house but so differently, and that's also what happens in The Family Upstairs by Lisa Jewell. I just wish I wasn't bored up until like the 50% mark, you know, but then when it took off, it really took off. And we do have that aspect of it, like it shifts to first person in Alana's POV. You're wondering if she's sort of like an unreliable narrator, she's younger, and Henry in The Family Upstairs is also, we're learning about things like when he's a kid, so you're wondering how much is true and how much is not. And it's really interesting. Like that's a really smart way to write, because you almost like feel like you can't trust your own instincts, which adds to like the psychological thrill of it. I think this author of Patchwork has a lot of promise, and I would read another emotional, drama slash thriller from this author, because I think that they have dealt with, again, the topics of abuse with such consideration and care for victims of child abuse, and understanding the dynamics of an extremely manipulative and abusive mother. The abusive mother was so impactful on me. Like, as a reader, I was legitimately scared of her. It felt a lot like when you're reading The Family Upstairs by Lisa Jewell, the couple that moves in, the culty couple, you're like, oh, I'm terrified of you. And I think that that's a testament to authors understanding how to write tension into a scene and into a particular person, and I think that both of these authors have that. So I would not recommend this as a horror. I would recommend this as a psychological thriller a la The Family Upstairs by Lisa Jewell. I have not read anything else by Lisa Jewell, so if you have a favorite by her, leave it down below. I would definitely call it a thriller, but also emotionally impactful drama. Same thing I would say about The Family Upstairs. So both these books I recommend if you like psychological thrillers, but there are a lot of triggers, especially for child abuse and neglect of all kinds. So please tread carefully when you read things like this. I recommend both. Both of them are 3.5. Like, I had some issues with The Family Upstairs where, so it's funny, it's like the Patchwork I don't feel like had a great beginning, and though the ending was sort of explosive in The Family Upstairs, I thought that it was kind of like silly where we left off at the end. I was like, okay, to the point where, oh, there's a sequel. I'm not interested in reading it at all. But Patchwork, I felt like the last 50% and how it wrapped up was like tied nicely with a little bow. I liked it. It felt very nicely put together and done. Whereas Family Upstairs, I felt like went the opposite route. So, that's pretty subjective though. Everybody's gonna feel different about that. So to each their own. But yeah, I didn't love the ending of The Family Upstairs. I felt like it was weird and silly. Like, I don't know, Henry was being so wonky. Was it supposed to be funny? I didn't get it. I didn't understand. Anyway, that's my review. I think you should try these if you like psychological thrillers. Check their trigger warnings. Yeah, let me know your favorite thriller down below of the psychological persuasion, but focusing in on family drama. Okay? Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye. And before I go, I have to say thank you for being a friend to my Therapy Bills patrons, and those are Alexander, Ali Magpie, Amba Hextras, Andy, Cami, Chris, Claire, Des Robert, DJ Rocktopus. Oh man, I'm struggling today with the mouth. Ellie, Emperor's New Blues, Aaron, Eric, Faror, Harley, Ian, also hi, welcome Ian, Jack and Jill, John E, Casey McKenzie, Kalei No K, Kate W, Quinn, Lady Kittybug, Lex, Alice, Peggy Lou, Rain, Reese, Samar, Scarlett, Shiny, and SMK. Thank you all so much for being a friend. And last but not least, I have to say thank you for being a friend to my Potato Stars Marxist patrons. If you can hear my kids singing in the background, just ignore it. And those patrons are AM Angel, Alicia, Amanda, Angelica, Anita, Artie the Ninth, Ashley H, Ava, BB, Beck, Blythe, Bookish Brainrot, Bree, Brian, Caitlin, Cardinal Ginger, Harlan, Cassandra, Catherine, Kathy, Chris, CJ, Cole, Colleen, Corwin, Corey, Darren, Deborah, Diet Goth, Dorian, Dorothea, Ebby, Ember, Emily A, Emily L, Emma, Aaron, Ezra Moon, Hannah C, Hannah T, Harpy Kuro, Haley, Hello There Darling, Ilianaka, India Inks, Jam Tennant, Jay is on Olympus, JT, Jen Michelle, Jenny G, Jillian, Jojo, Just Pugsley, Kaylee, Kat, Katie, Katya, Kayala, Kendra, Kylie, Laughing Cat Dog, Laura, Library of Scars, Lisa, LP, Luciri, Luna Moth, Lustful Octopus, Martin, Marcella, Marquita, Maz, Malara, MK Book, Molly, James, Nat, Natalie, Never, Nicole G, Nicole R, Nyan Binary, Paige P, Penny Chilling, Foxglove, Pixel Stars, Pure Atheon, Rachel B, Rat Sarah, Reba, Rebecca, Ren, Robin, Rosie Thorne, Rowan, Other Rowan, Sequoia, Sadie, Samantha, Sarah H, Sarah the Bear, Shamed, Shannon, Shayna, Sheena K, Sean, Sophie, Stephanie, Talia, 3 Old Dogs, Tina, Toast, Trashcan Teddy, Title Phoenix, Valentine, and Writer A. Thank you all so much for being a friend.